Okay, all yours.
All right, thanks so much, Roshni, for that really nice introduction. And welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to you today about career planning and how to set and meet your professional goals. And so as you'll notice, there's a prompt on the slide, and also I copied it into the chat. So I'd like everyone to kind of think about, why is it important to have a career plan? And if you can jot down your thoughts on that in the chat, I would appreciate that. And while you guys are working on that, I would just like to take a moment to, as today is 9/11, take a moment to remember those who lost their lives 19 years ago on September 11th, 2001. And for those of you who don't recognize this location, this is a picture of the 9/11 Memorial in New York City. So we've got a couple answers that have come into the chat. Keeping motivated, getting clarity and direction where you see yourself down the line, maximizing your potential, helps you to make smart and effective decisions, being proactive. So this is great. Thank you all for your contributions. And the core, I think, of what we're all getting at is that having a plan is important, because getting where you want to go requires a plan. Now you're all, really smart people. You have doctoral degrees, or you're in the process of getting a doctoral degree, and most PhDs are employed. But again, it's getting the jobs you're interested in are probably really competitive. And so in order to be successful in getting those jobs that you really want to have, you need to have a plan that's going to help you get there. And goal setting is a process that can help you to get where you want to go in life. But before you can make that plan and set your goals, you need to first figure out where it is that you want to go, right? So you need to have that destination in mind. So that's the first question you need to answer. So again, you can think about this if you're planning a trip. It's hard to plan if you have no real idea of your destination, right? So you need to have that destination in mind before you can go through that planning process to figure out how it is that you're going to get there. And this planning process starts with first looking inward and doing some self-assessment to think about, your values, your interests, and your abilities. So we're going to take a little bit of time to do this now, and we're going to start with your abilities, which is the things that you're good at. So abilities, sometimes people refer to this as skills. And I'd like you to consider your abilities in 3 general areas. So you can think about your subject or knowledge abilities. These often you hear expressed as nouns. So examples of this might be dancing, programming, cell culture. And these are often things that are developed or learned through your education and formal training or technical competencies that you've developed. A second area you can think about your abilities is your transferable or functional abilities. These are often expressed as verbs. So things like analyze, collaborate, manage. And these are the things that this is what you do and how you go about accomplishing your tasks. And the final area you can think about is your personal traits or qualities. And you often hear these expressed as adjectives. So things like adaptable, responsible, organized. And you can think of these as the attributes that you use to do your best work. And so we're just going to do another little interactive activity here. And actually for this, you're going to need your web browser, either on your computer or on your phone. And if you can go to this website here, menti.com, that's listed at the top of the screen, and use the code that's listed there, 11763. And go ahead and put in, what are some of the skills that you have? Oops. So I love the breadth of things I'm seeing, everything from kind of those subject knowledge skills, research skills, to your transferable functional skills, and there's a number of personal traits and qualities in there in addition. Great, fantastic. So we have a super talented group here today. That's wonderful. And again, this is sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for all the skills and abilities that we bring to the table, but it's definitely important to reflect on this and think about it, especially when we're thinking about career planning. And so, all right, so we've now talked about skills. So we're gonna now talk about interests. And it's important to remember that skills are not the same as interests, right? So you can be really good at doing something, but not enjoy doing it at all. And conversely, you can really enjoy doing something, even if you're not talented at it or good at it. So again, they're separate things. And so you can think about the things you enjoy, like what do you like to do or what do you do for fun? And what are the things that you look forward to or energize you? You know, what are you excited about? What brings you energy, as opposed to the things that that drain you? And so again, conversely, it's also important to think about those things that you don't like. So what are the things that you procrastinate on or avoid doing? And what are things that you do only because you have to? And if you had the option, you would choose not to do them. So again, when you're thinking about your career, it's important to think about these things, because ideally you want a career where you're doing more of the things that you enjoy doing and less of the things that you don't like doing. So when you think about what you enjoy and what you dislike, you can look at that and see if there's common themes that run across both your interests and the things that you dislike. And that can give you some priorities and things to think about when you're looking at your job or job fields of areas or types of employment or types of work that you might want to pursue or focus on or have as your long-term career goal. And so again, we're going to do another Menti poll. And so, so we're just going to now talk about what are those things that you enjoy doing? What are your interests? And feel free to write in interests within your research or things that you enjoy doing outside in your free time. So we've got a nice mix of research or work-focused interests, as well as some things that I assume are more personal interests or outside of work interests for probably most of you, at least currently. So, and again, as you're reflecting on these, kind of think about what are career fields that can incorporate some of these interests. And also, again, thinking about, are there things you're interested in, but your skill level may not be as developed in those areas? And what are ways that you could develop your skills in your areas of interest that might open up career possibilities that would be more aligned with what you'd like to do? All right. So finally, we're gonna get to values. And it's important not to forget this. Often people, an area of the self-reflection that people ignore. And it's important to take it into consideration, because actually a mismatch between your values and needs and your job and the values or that are supported by your job or the organization you work for, that's often the source of the largest source of job dissatisfaction or stress. So it's really important to consider this when you're thinking about careers or career fields. And again, you can think about different aspects of your values, including intrinsic values. So those are the things that internally motivate you and provide you with satisfaction. So examples of these might be helping others, which somebody actually put on their interest list, I saw from the word cloud last time, or performing at a high level. So these would be things that internally motivate you, drive you to do your best work. You can also think about extrinsic values. So this is what you want or need externally to do your best and to stay engaged. And so some examples of this would be your physical work environment. So do you need your own office? Do you prefer to work in a more open space where you have lots of interaction with other people? Pay or benefits that you receive for the jobs that you're doing, or titles or recognition that you receive from others for the work that you do. You also want to consider your lifestyle values. So these are the personal factors that take priority for you. So examples of this might be working in a location that's near family, or having a job where you don't have to work on the weekends, so you have that work-life balance delineation. But these are things that you want to take into consideration as you consider both types of work that you like to do and organizations that you may want to work for. So we're going to do one final Menti poll, which again is going to think about what are your values? So what are some things that you value? So again, we've got a nice balance of intrinsic, extrinsic, and lifestyle values that are being reflected here. Then, like I said, these are important things to consider, especially when you're thinking about if you ever find yourself in a situation where you are not satisfied in your work environment, reflecting on if it is related to a mismatch with your values and the values that are reflected within your job responsibilities or within the organization that you work for. All right, thank you everyone so much for sharing. So we may wonder, why do we go through this? So again, finding the career destination or the path that you want to take really is key to finding the intersection between your values, interests, and abilities and a career field or career area that you want to pursue. So, and then once you have that kind of general long-term direction that you want to head in, you can then start planning goals to help you get to that ultimate destination that you want to reach. So, and I also can encourage you, again, we did this through this self-reflection, but to make sure that when you're thinking about your long-term goals, that you're being true to yourself, right? That you're actually considering what you feel is important and where you want to go, not necessarily thinking about what others want for you or say would be right for you. Sometimes we have a lot of pressure from family or friends that can influence us, and taking that information in is important, considering those opinions, but ultimately think about that also what's true to you, right? And because doing something else just for someone else, especially for your long-term career planning, if it's not something that you really want, it's going to be very hard for you to achieve that because it's not going to be as strong of a priority for you. And also you may not feel as satisfied or as happy, or ultimately may not be as productive if you're trying to do something that really isn't matching with your true values, interests, and abilities. So, again, this type of self-reflection can give you that long-term career goal, so the destination at the end of your path. And that type of long-term career goal is usually one that you're going to work to achieve over several years. So to do this, you're going to set some short-term or more intermediate goals. And these will serve as milestones for you on your path towards your ultimate career goal. So, you know, this is what we're going to talk about today, is that planning process. So it's like, how do I get from where I am now to where I ultimately want to be in the future? And so to think about that, like I said, you're going to have your long-term career goal, and then you're going to have sub goals that you're going to make to reach that. And just realize that this may be a multi-tiered process or a multi-level hierarchy as you're setting your goals. And so you're going to have a very long-term career goal, and then you're going to have you know, more intermediate goals, and then each of those goals may have sub goals, and ultimately taking you down to a very specific, you know, task or action item goal, which is kind of the goal, which is kind of where you want to end up. Because when we set these higher level goals, sometimes they can feel overwhelming or intimidating, and we start feeling like, oh, we're never going to get there, and we're really frustrated. But if we can break it down into these concrete action steps and task-oriented goals that we can take that are very discrete, and we can accomplish those, and again, check it off, and that move us closer to our ultimate career goal, that's what we want to do. That's how we'll be making progress. That's how we'll be planning. And that's how we can really take that ownership and make that forward process. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, this can help you to really stay motivated by breaking your goals down into these task and action-oriented items, so that you are making progress. You'll feel like you're making progress. You'll stay motivated. It also gives you opportunities to really keep track and measure your progress, make sure you're moving forward, make sure you're staying on track. And when you get to these task and action-oriented goals, it's also great to try to make them SMART goals. And SMART is an acronym some of you may have heard of already. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And we're going to go through each of these in a lot more detail, starting with specific. So research shows that you're more likely to succeed in a goal when you make it specific. So you want to make it as clear and detailed as possible. And like I said, you also want to make it action-oriented. So again, you want to make sure that there's some specific action or task that you're going to take related to that goal. So an example would be, if your goal is to become a better writer, then you may want to sign up for a writing class. And so again, some specific action you can take that moves the needle towards where you want to go. It's also a good idea to express your goals positively in terms of what you want to accomplish, rather than framing them negatively in terms of what you want to avoid or what you don't want to do. So an example of this would be, you know, a positively framed goal would be, I want to write the best fellowship proposal I can, which is a better goal than don't make mistakes on my fellowship proposal. And actually there's psychological research that shows that focusing on what you don't want to happen actually makes it more likely that that what you don't want to happen will happen, because you're focusing your energy and attention and thoughts on the outcome you don't want, as opposed to the outcome you do want. So the second step in this is measurable. And so again, you want to know how you're going to measure success. How do you know when you've achieved your goal? And so by specifically defining and talking about how you're going to measure success and what constitutes a goal completion, you'll know exactly when you've achieved your goal. And that way you can, again, mark it off your list. You can also have that level of satisfaction that you have completed it and have achieved it. And this is often the thing that's missing from goals that people set, is that measurement piece. And because it is so lacking, often it's good to try to have kind of two different measures you're going to use to say it's completed. So again, what are two ways that I can show that I've completed this goal? That's not always possible for every goal you set, but kind of going into your goal setting and thinking about what are two ways that I could demonstrate and document that I've been successful or that I've completed this goal, and see if you could make that happen. Have A for attainable. So you want to make sure you're setting goals that are within your power to achieve, or you can think about this, things, you're trying to control things that are within your sphere of influence, as opposed to things that are outside of your control. And setting goals that are realistic for you to accomplish really is the key to motivated and focused on this goal. So again, you want your goals to challenge you, but you also want to set yourself up for likely success. So again, you don't want to set something up that you won't have control over the outcome. And so you also want to think about being realistic and giving yourself enough time and resources to complete whatever goal you set for yourself, given your real life commitments or other commitments outside of your career goals that you're setting. And like I said, setting unrealistic or unattainable goals really set yourself up for creating a sense of failure and can often lead you to lose motivation. So try to keep your goals focused, tight, and things that you can definitely achieve. So. You know, sometimes it's, you know, we will unintentionally set a goal that's too difficult because we might not appreciate obstacles in our way or understand quite how much skill or knowledge we need to do that when we're first setting out our goal. And if that happens, you know, be kind to yourself. It's okay. You know, that happens sometimes. Go ahead, think through, you know, take that as a learning opportunity to think through, you know, what's the new knowledge you've gained, rework that goal, and make it more realistic and attainable. So it's okay to go back and revisit things as you kind of gain knowledge or realize that what you've set may not have been, you know, the best goal to start with. And it's also important to think about that at an early stage, your task or action item goals might be something like doing research or gathering information on what it takes for you to achieve your longer term goals. So again, that's totally fine to have a goal that's basically, I need to learn more, or I need to understand this process better, or understand this career field better so that I know what it is that I need to do in order to make progress towards that ultimate goal. And taking the time to do this, to do that research and gather information so that you can set better goals, can really improve the quality and the realism of the goals that you're setting. Another way to ensure that your goals are attainable is to make sure that you're setting performance-based goals and not outcome-based goals. And we're often, you know, we often think about goals in terms of outcomes, but when you think about it, you know, a lot of times outcome-based goals, there's a lot of other factors that go into it besides just our personal efforts that will dictate the outcome, the ultimate outcome of what happens. And it can be really dispiriting to fail a goal for reasons or factors that are completely outside of your control, and like I said, outside of your sphere of influence. So try setting performance-based goals instead, so that can help you to avoid that by ensuring that you are really in control of your ultimate goal success. So an example of an outcome-based goal would be something like getting your paper accepted for publication. So again, if you think about that, there are many other people who ultimately influence and determine whether a paper is published or not. You know, from reviewers to the journal editors to a whole other host of, you know, factors that go into it. So that outcome is not really in your control. Instead, you could reframe that goal into a performance-based goal by saying something like, I will put together the best paper I can by having my colleagues and mentors review and provide input, ensuring that I understand and follow the journal guidelines, and consider and work to address potential reviewer critiques. So those are just examples of actions that ultimately improve your chances of having your paper published or accepted, but they're all things that are within your ability to execute and achieve. So another example of an outcome-based goal would be getting a job offer. So again, people think about that as like, oh, my goal is to get a job offer. But again, if you think about that, the ultimate decision of whether you're offered a job or not involves a lot of factors that are completely out of your control. So there's other people who are making that decision. You know, there may be other factors that are influencing how they evaluate candidates. So let's brainstorm instead. What do you think are some performance-based goals you could set related to a job application or interview process that, again, are performance-based instead of outcome-based? So go ahead and put those in the chat now. So how many people, you know, do people have any thoughts on how you could set? Yep. set number of job applications in a certain amount of time, practice interviews, interview questions, working on your skill sets so you're more competitive. Examples. Doing mock interviews, updating your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, fantastic. And again, updating and formatting your CV or tailoring your CV. Conducting informational interviews so you get some inside information to help you tailor your application materials. These are all great suggestions. And again, thinking about that, those are things that are completely within your control and will help you to hopefully be successful in your interview and application process and get that job offer. But again, it's important when you're framing your goals to not set getting the job offer as your goal, because again, you want to make sure that you are doing things and setting goals that you are within your power and your sphere of influence to achieve. So again, what is attainable for you, given your resources, given your position, and given what's within your ability to control. So you also want to make sure that the goals you're setting are relevant. So, you want to set goals that align with what you want most to achieve, your values and your priorities, and that move you towards or get you closer to achieving that long-term career goal. So each goal you set should be relevant and meaningful to you. And again, should be moving you one step closer to where you want to be long-term. So to make sure you're setting relevant goals, you can start asking yourself some questions like, how does achieving this goal help me, or help me make progress towards where I want to be? Does accomplishing this goal contribute towards my larger goals or long-term goals? Why does this goal matter to me? How is it helping me do something that I think is personally important or meaningful? So again, these are questions you can ask and make sure that the goal is something that you want to prioritize and you want to be working on. It is helping you get to where you want to go. And the final aspect of SMART goals is time bound. So you want to make sure that you're setting some sort of timetable to achieve your goals. And this can help both keep you motivated and also on track and on schedule. And so this could be a specific date by which you want to complete the particular task or action item you set out for yourself. Or sometimes these action items will be something you're doing with a certain periodicity, right? Maybe you want to check in with one of your connections in your professional network every week. That would be something you're doing on an ongoing basis, but again, it has a periodicity to it. So it's important to think about setting a timetable not only for these specific task or action item goals, but you're also going to want to set some general timetables for your larger goals or intermediate goals and longer term career objectives. So again, that thing that's way down the road. And keeping in mind that your longer term, the longer out the goal is, the less specific that timeline will probably be, or the less precise it will be. So again, you can be thinking about in 5 years or in 10 years, this is where I want to be. But setting those higher level goal timelines is also important for you to back calculate what you need to set for your intermediate and short-term goals and your action items and tasks, right? So that's going to help you prioritize prioritize your shorter-term goals and determine the appropriate timetable for these to happen, and for your task and action item goals for those to be completed so that you can achieve those longer-term goals. And it's also important to keep in mind, before you're setting these timetables or completion dates, make sure you're considering all the associated tasks that you have. What is the amount of time you have to devote to doing these different activities, and also potential roadblocks you might encounter along the way. So again, giving yourself some flexibility so that if there are roadblocks, you can still navigate those, rethink things, and maintain your ultimate timeline that you want to be working on. So we're going to go through a couple different examples. And again, I'd just like you to write in the chat whether you think these are SMART goals or if they could be smarter in some way. And if they could be smarter, what could you add to it to make it a smarter goal? So the first one is build my professional network. So we've got, needs to be more specific, needs to quantify, needs an action associated with it. You need some more specific detail. Yeah, how are you going to do this? There's no information about how are you going to go about building your professional network? How do you know you're done? You know, it's not really measurable. What quantifies success? Exactly. So like Andrew says, reach out to 10 people this week. You know, that would definitely create some more measurement to it. There's no timeline. Excellent. All right. So the next one is present research at a conference and meet at least 3 people in my field. What do you think about that? Is it smart? Are there ways it could be smarter? So when, again, timeline, yep. Exactly. And what are you going to do? You know, what are you going to do with the 3 people you meet? Does meeting people really help you in any way? You know, does that help you with your long-term goal? Is it relevant? Yeah. How are you following up with the people? What are you doing with that information? All great points. So, all right. Next one is sign up for listservs to find discipline-related networking events in my area. So yeah, which listservs? You know, how many networking events are you trying to find? What's the time frame for this? What are you planning to do with the networking events? Again, what is the action item that you're going to take as a result of that, or how is it going to help you with your longer term goal? So is it relevant? How is it relevant? Yeah, you may want to think about prioritizing the events too. So again, like you're going to find them. How do you choose which ones you go to? How many are you going to attend? Are you going to attend them? Or are you just generating a list of events? Or are you actually planning to attend them? And if you attend them, what are you going to do there? Great. All right, one final example. So go on at least 5 informational interviews every month. What do you guys think about that one? That's pretty good. So again, you can think about, you know, yeah, what are you trying to achieve by going on these informational interviews? What information do you want to get out? What about, is this realistic, right? Do you actually have time to do this? Because again, if you think about all the tasks that go into setting up one informational interview, you need to identify a number of people you might like to talk to. You're going to need to compose an email, reach out to them in some way by phone or by email to set a time and date that you want to talk. You're going to need to figure out what you want to ask them. You want to send follow-up and thank you notes, and then also maintain and build those connections. You know, so again, your network is only as strong, only as good as it is strong. So you want to make sure that you're not just meeting these people and leaving them. You're going to need to nurture those relationships. So there's a lot that goes into it. And again, it's also thinking about, as you're setting your goals, you can have a goal that seems smart, but again, still has these subtasks, or again, these individual things. And that's where, when you're thinking about your goals, getting down to these more specific, you know, action items or task goals really helps you to, again, prioritize them, make a timeline, and actually take action and move forward towards achieving your goal. So when you're thinking about your goals, trying to drill down, or making sure you're drilling down and really thinking about what are the component tasks, or what are the component action items that I'm going to need to complete to make this happen, and making sure that you're really getting down to that base level so that you can start prioritizing and scheduling these and incorporating them into your to-do list. That's really important. All right, so now that we've talked about, you know, where we want to go, that big dream, we've talked about how we're going to set goals. Now we're going to think of ways that we can set ourselves up to take action and actually put this plan into effect and set ourselves up for success as we're taking that action and actually working on achieving our goals. And the first thing you want to do is thinking about getting feedback. And this can be really helpful, you know, to help you both clarify your goals, making sure that they are realistic and things that you can achieve, and also relevant, you know, getting advice from people who are further along in the career field that you want to pursue or have more experience to help you kind of navigate that and figure out, and also helping you to prioritize what you should be working on first and what will come later. And so identifying a couple key mentors or coaches who you can share your goals with and who can give you that feedback is really key. And this can also help to keep you, you know, accountable. It's also helpful to choose, you know, someone, you can choose some peers that you think can help you out. That's great. Or you can also choose people who you hold in high esteem. That's often a good idea because you're going to want to make sure that you make a good impression, or don't let those people down because you respect them a lot. So again, those can be good choices of people as mentors. But I would suggest that you try to choose someone who's not invested in your other goals. So someone other than your primary research mentor. You know, your PI may be a fantastic mentor. They may be really supportive. But again, if there's a conflict between your career goals and the research goals that they want you to achieve, they may not, you know, they may be, again, prioritizing your research goals over career goals, or your skill development goals. So again, especially when deadlines are tight or things like that. So it's often helpful to have an outside perspective to help with that and to give you some feedback to help you maintain that balance and prioritize and make progress on your career goals. And they're not sacrificing those exclusively for your research goals. So like I said, having a mentor to discuss your goals with is also a great way to stay accountable and stay motivated. Because again, you can appraise your mentor on your progress towards these goals, and that can help you to stay on track. And again, having a strategy for staying accountable is really, really important. As I mentioned, having mentors that you talk to about this can be really effective. It can also help to have kind of peer mentors, you know, so you can hold each other accountable for your goals. Or maybe if you're, you know, both working on a particularly the same goal or same project, you can have a project buddy. So that way you guys can work together towards a goal. And so you guys can meet and discuss your progress. But without setting up this framework for accountability, it can often be difficult to move that forward. Because as we talked about, you know, your career goals, it's often easy to push these aside for some of your other research goals, or, you know, we all have those fires that come in. And so again, these can often get pushed aside if we're not careful about how we frame it and making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable and prioritizing it, again, making sure it's important and that we are giving the time and the space to invest in ourselves, right? Because ultimately that's what we need to be doing. That's what you need to do for your ultimate career success. So the other thing that's important to keep in mind is making sure that you are rewarding yourself as you're completing your goals. So take the time to enjoy the satisfaction of having completed the job. Think about the implications of achieving that goal, noticing the progress that you've made towards your ultimate long-term goals. That will really help to keep you motivated. And if the goal you completed was kind of a really significant one or a significant milestone, make sure you're rewarding yourself appropriately. Do something to celebrate that and recognize it. So for some of us, you know, the very act of crossing something off of our to-do list can be a reward in itself. For others, you may need to find another type of reward that works for you, something that motivates you and allows you to celebrate those victories. So let's go ahead and put in the chat, you know, what are some ways that you do recognize your accomplishments or reward yourself, or what are some ways that you think you could recognize yourself or reward yourself for achieving a goal? Spa day, definitely. For me, it's going to the beach, taking some time to be by the ocean and enjoy that. Cake, somebody said. Going to a movie or watching a movie, hiking. Yeah, so anything you do to playing games with friends. So yeah, anything you can do to kind of take that time to reward yourself, recognize yourself, do something that you enjoy, do something that recharges you, relaxes you. All great. So excellent. All right. So the other factor that's important in all of this is it's really important that you write your goals down, like either physically write them out on paper, you can do it in a Word document electronically, or some other, maybe use an Excel sheet, whatever you want to organize it. Like I said, you're going to have some sort of hierarchy going on. So whatever makes sense for you to how you organize that. But the act of writing them down is really important. So again, research shows that you're more likely to achieve goals if you write them down. And this also helps you to kind of visualize them. It helps you to prioritize them. It also helps you to think about, again, those subtasks, right? Because as you write it down, you can think about like, what do I actually need to do to achieve this? And so making sure that you are getting to those fundamental, action items or that you need to achieve for that particular goal. So. The other thing somebody already mentioned in the chat, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but thinking about priorities, right? So you're gonna have a lot of goals. If you think about goal planning, right? This is a longer term, maybe 5 or 10 year out goal that you're working to and all these sub goals. So there's gonna be a lot going on there, right? So you're not gonna be able to do all of that at once or make progress towards everything on your goal list at once. So you're really gonna need to prioritize what is it that you wanna focus on first? What is the most important? What do you need to do to make progress to future goals? What is the order that things need to be going? So again, writing it out can help you to filter this and figure out what it is that you're going to prioritize on. But it's really important that you do prioritize and think about your self-assessment when you're doing this. To again, thinking about what's most important, where do you want to go, to help you narrow this down and figure out what am I focusing on today, tomorrow, the next week, the next month, kind of giving yourself that prioritization scale. And this is really important to help you avoid feeling overwhelmed by having too many goals on your plate at the same time. Helps you to direct your energy to what's the most important now. What's the most important for me to accomplish now? And also, like we said, things happen in life, right? So having this kind of priority scale too helps you to reorganize as you need to make time for other things, life events. We all went through this pandemic right now, right? Which shifted a lot of things for us. And there's different things that may happen personally in our lives that are gonna take up time or need to take priority and may take away time from the focus we had for our career goals. And so this can help you figure out what it is that I need to wait for later for, and what is it that I continue to move forward on based on how I've ranked these and what is the most important or key for me to make that to continue moving forward and getting where I wanna go. The other thing that's really important is to get them on your calendar. So again, once you've prioritized them, you've got a timeline, you've got those specific action item goals that you need to complete. You're going to want to map them out on your calendar or translate it to your to-do list or whatever you use to track the things that you need to accomplish. Whatever formatting you use for that, that's where your career goals need to be in there. And that way, again, it gives them importance. It gives you the permission to devote time to them. It also makes sure that you are scheduling time to these, to making progress on them. And if you're having trouble translating your goals onto your calendar, that may be a sign that you need to think about how you can break that goal down, again, into more of those action item goals, right? Or those very specific task goals that you need to do. It may be a sign that the goal you're trying to schedule is still at that higher level and not down to the specific tasks that you need to work on. And as I mentioned, things happen. Like your plan may need to change. So it's important that you check in on your goals as you're pursuing them. As we said, sometimes you may set a goal that you realize as you get into it may not have been as realistic or may need to be broken down into sub goals. It's, you want to periodically check in on your progress, on how things are going, revise and update your goals and your plans as you need to. Based on your experience. You can also think about as you achieve goals, it's good to check in and reflect, like, was that goal too easy? Maybe you need to set yourself a slightly more challenging goal next time. If you learn something that, again, may lead you to alter or reflect or think about how you need to change your other goals, you may want to do that. If you're doing something and you notice a gap in your skill set while you're working on a particular goal, you may want to think about, do I need to set a new goal that helps me to develop skills in that area? And as I mentioned earlier, it's really important through this whole process to be kind to yourself. It's really okay to rework your goals, reset your timelines as you get more information, or recognize that you have other competing priorities that have come in, or new responsibilities, or like I said, the world's changed because of the pandemic. You know, that happens, and it's not a failure. It's completely normal. So use those as learning opportunities to reflect on, you know, what happened, how you can improve from that, how you need to adjust. And that's completely normal. So, and as you go through this self-reflection, it'll help you to enhance your ability to set more realistic goals, and also to manage your timelines. And this is an important skill in itself. You know, goal setting is a skill that's going to serve you well throughout your career in a variety of areas. And so skill setting, like any other skill, is something that you can improve and can get better on. And even many employers actually value candidates who have a record of setting and achieving goals. And often you'll get asked questions about this during an interview process. And so having examples you can point to of how you go about your goal setting, and how you set goals and achieve them, that you can talk about during your interview, is going to be really valuable as well. So it's important to think about, like, when you get stuck or overwhelmed, you know, take a deep breath, go ahead and check in with yourself, do this review process, and kind of think about, you know, what is one small step I can take towards achieving this goal? So again, break it down into the smallest part, and then actually do that action, right? And that can help you to get back on track. It'll help you to reframe yourself, help you to move past those times when you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed. It's also important to, you know, periodically review your longer term career plans. You know, do that kind of self-reflection we did at the beginning, and think about, is that destination I started my plan with still where I want to end up and still where I want to go, right? Because as we move through our career and we move through life, our priorities may change, what we want may change, where we want to go may change. And so it's good to kind of check in with that, you know, especially at this stage in your career, maybe every 6 months to a year. And as you move further on in your career and you're kind of more set in your career path, you can do this maybe every couple years, every 5 years, just kind of making sure, again, I'm heading where I want to go. Or if you, again, find yourself in a situation where you're feeling unsatisfied or feeling like things aren't working the way you want them to, or you're not happy with your current career, that's also a good time to kind of check in and think about, is the place, my ultimate destination that I've thought about, is that still where I want to be? Is that still where I want to end up? So yeah, so again, don't be afraid to think about that and change as you need to, based on how you've evolved and how you've changed. I'll just leave you with one final thought, which is, you know, that while you have this destination you're heading to, like on this map, there are many roads that lead there, right? So there's many different paths you can take to get to where you want to go. So there's not one right answer. There's not one right path for everyone. Don't be afraid to change your plans and find the route or the path that's going to work best for you. Or again, if you head down a path and you realize that's not working, go ahead and shift to a different direction, to a different route. And you know, there's many roads to get where you want to go. Your career is a lifelong journey, and so is your career planning process. So it's constantly evolving, it's constantly moving, and it's okay to adjust and update as you go and see where the journey takes you. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope you all, I wish you all success with your individual career journeys. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Heather. I know what my goals are going to be for after this call, and it's just to shut down my computer and take a break. So you didn't see me, but I was nodding profusely at many of the things that you said. So thank you for your time. Prithika has a question for you, Heather. Do you know of planning or organizing tools? Any particular like planner? She pastes passionplanner.com as a resource for everybody. So
Yeah.
check that out. And if Heather, you have anything else?
Yeah, and I don't have any that I particularly recommend, because I think this is, again, everyone's process is slightly different, and you really need to find the one that's going to work with how your brain works, how you think, how you organize, your to-do list and your life, but there are a variety of apps and planning software and tools out there. So you can, get recommendations from the people you work with, your friends and coworkers, kind of see what they like about it and figure out what one's going to work best with you and your style and how you like to organize things. So I see there was another question from Ishan. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name. So about good types of mentors. So again, I think the best mentors are going to be ones who have experience in the career field that you want to pursue, right? So again, who are inside that environment and can really advise you on their experience that they've had navigating that career field. They're going to have a lot of that inside information. With that being said, it's often good to have some diverse perspectives too, right? So again, don't be afraid to diversify or have mentors who you connect with for a variety of levels. Again, we all have our own identities we come with. So sometimes you may want to have, connect with someone who has a shared experience that way. And it's not necessarily your career path, but you guys have navigated some similar challenges based on identities or, your background that you're coming from. So if that's something that, you want to talk about, you may want to seek out mentors who can advise you that way. So again, really, I think having multiple perspectives though is really helpful, because that can help you distinguish between what is generally probably good advice you want to follow from each individual is going to have their own personal perspectives and ways that they approach things. So again, I think, if you hear something said, you have 4 mentors and all 4 mentors say something, that again, you still want to reflect on whether that's going to work for you personally, but that's something I would highly consider that may be something that I want to take into advice. Whereas if only one person says it and the other 3 don't share that opinion, that may be something that I'll consider, but I'm going to be more likely to reflect, okay, well, if that doesn't work for me, then I'm like, okay, well, that's probably, an individual difference that we have and not necessarily something that I need to focus all my attention on, pursuing that particular advice. So hopefully that helps. All right.
Any other questions? Thank you all for participating in the interactive portion. That's always the best part of these Zoom workshops, is when people participate in the interactive portion of these workshops. Do you have any suggestions or guidelines for creating questions for informational interviews?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different ways you can go about pursuing that. Most of all, you can think about, like, what is my goal with talking to this person, right? Hopefully you've reached out to this person for a particular reason, for their advice in a particular area. So there's a reason you're interested in talking to that particular person. And hopefully you've thought about that before you reached out to them, right? So you've expressed that when you've written your note to say, hey, I'd like to meet with you because I'd like to talk to you about whatever it is that you're interested in. So that's a good place to start, is what brought you to their door, and what is it that you're hoping to learn from them. The other advice I'll have generally is that you want to use that time to ask questions that you can't get answers to just by simply searching the internet or reading a website, or it's not easy for you to find, right? So don't waste that person's time. That's valuable time, and ask questions that really, maybe it's about the company culture, maybe it's about, their particular career journey. So a lot of questions about how they got where they are, what advice they have. Those are things that you're unlikely to be able to find out a lot of information about just by looking at their LinkedIn profile or looking online. So those are the types of things I would consider asking. So somebody asked about, yeah, so again, what inspires you, what challenge is the best part of your job. So we have another question about what should we also be trying ourselves. Oh, I guess one more thing about informational interviews. There's a lot of worksheets you can find about informational interviews and types of questions you can ask. A lot of times they relate to, you can think about it, the NIH refers to this as past, present, and future. So again, how you got there, what are types of training I need, what are skills, what is your job like, what do you dislike, what's the day-to-day, what are the career paths, and then future, like, where do you go from there, what are your ultimate career goals, what's something that somebody could do after doing this job, those types of things. But there's a lot of resources online. So if you just Google informational interviews, or, I'm sure your institution, Roshni, I'm sure you guys have some resources as well. But a lot of different places have some sample questions you can at least use as a starting point to kind of think about what are the things you want to ask. So when we're talking about trying to sell yourself during an informational interview, again, remember, this is an informational interview is about gathering information. So it's a learning process. So you should think of it more as you're a reporter and you're gathering information from the person you're talking to. So it's less about you and it's more about the person you're talking to. With that being said, you do want to make sure you're giving a good impression. So again, you're going to want to take it seriously. You want them to think highly of you, because ideally you're going to want them to recommend you for opportunities if they come available. But it's important to keep in mind that it's not a job interview. You shouldn't ask for a job. And really most of the conversation should be about the other person. If you want to, at the end, you can turn around to yourself and say, and ask them, if the conversation's gone well and you feel like they might be receptive to it, you can ask them, would you mind looking over my CV or my resume to give me some advice? Is there someone else you would recommend I talk to, who I might be connected to? Or again, even something like, could you give me advice on the best way to hear about opportunities in this career field, right? So something that opens the door for them to say, oh, I'd be happy to, share anything I hear with you, right, about job opportunities available. But you need to be careful. It's a fine line, right? You want to make a good impression, but it's not primarily, the purpose is not primarily to sell yourself. It's to gather information, learn about, get that inside information that's going to help you with your job interviews and applications, and make connections, most importantly, so that you start networking with people who can provide those inside opportunities when they hear about things that may be of interest to you.
Other questions? If not, then I am just going to thank Heather for your time again. It's what, 3 o'clock for you? No, it's 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Thank you for your time. Ihsan has one question before we go. Last question. What is a good strategy to find a mentor who has our interest in mind, specifically towards our career path, and is not biased? In university, it's somehow complicated. So I guess that means that sometimes your professor, your PI is not going to be supportive towards your career strategy. What can you do to navigate that is the question.
Yeah, and I think this is where starting those conversations with people other than your primary research mentor is so key. So you can kind of see if there's somebody in the department who's doing interesting work you may want to talk to. If you're within academia and you're thinking about staying in academia, you can talk to people in your institution, maybe outside your department. There's somebody who you think you may be interested in learning more about what they do and about how they got where they are, who's doing something inspiring that you find, and kind of start the conversation that way. And as you see if that's a relationship that may develop, you can do that. You can also look at academic mentors who may be outside your institution, right? So again, don't be afraid to reach out to academics who are at other institutions, and that may even help you more, right? If you're interested in pursuing a faculty career, having allies who are in different academic institutions and can speak highly of you as they get to know you could be highly advantageous for you as you move down the road. So it's not, it's not an easy process, but it all starts with that first conversation, right? So it's a matter of reaching out to people, making that connection, and having a conversation. And like I said, often it's beneficial to start that conversation more about them, and then, establish that relationship. And then you can start seeing how it evolves, and all these relationships, hopefully you're aiming for them to be mutually beneficial, right? So it's not a one-way street, right? It's not all about you getting advice from this person, but hopefully you're contributing to their, either intellectual conversations, or again, you can forward them articles you found that were interesting or things like that. So some way, thinking about ways that you can, again, make it into more of a relationship than a transaction, right? Yeah. Is ultimately what you want to do.
Correct, exactly. Thank you everyone for joining. Heather, I will follow up with an email after this and probably send you the recording whenever it's ready and upload it to the YouTube channel. Thanks, great. Everybody. Have a good weekend. Keep your goals realistic and take time to be kind to yourself. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.